Good morning. We're extremely happy to see all of you both in person and online. My name is Tatiana Titareva. I'm a staff scientist at AI Policy Lab at Umeå University, and I'm going to moderate the session in person. And I also have a co-moderator online. Isadora, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this session. My name is Isadora Hellegren. I'm a senior projects manager for AI policy research at MILA, Quebec AI Institute.
Thank you so much. Today's session's focus is to discuss the roadmap for AI Policy Lab that we have developed within the community of international AI policy researchers. You can see the QR codes both to the roadmap as well as to the community that we are going to launch soon. We would like to achieve the following goals for today's session. Number one, to introduce and discuss the key concepts of the roadmap. Secondly, to discuss with you both in person and online, how can AI policy research support global cooperation in AI governance while preserving the regional diversities? And thirdly, what mechanisms can best support the access to and effective integration of AI policy research into AI governance processes. So our session is structured in the following way. We will start with the background of the roadmap by Isadora. Then we will have a keynote speech by Professor Virginia Dignam, who is currently based in Bangkok. Then we will go into several we'll go into the speaker interventions from different regional and sectoral perspectives. We will open the floor to the discussion, hopefully for around 15 to 20 minutes, and then Professor Virginia Dignam will close the session with her final remarks. Isadora, floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Tatiana. It is really a true pleasure to be here with all of you today. And before kicking off, I will share a question with all of you online participants as well, whom I would like to share one word on what is the most important thing to consider in AI policy research. So I will be checking back in on this question a little bit later. But now, let me begin. We're very glad to be having this conversation here, especially at the Internet Governance Forum. Many of the challenges and opportunities that we face in AI governance are, although sometimes treated as such, not new. We have much to learn from internet governance history, and we do find ourselves at a moment right now in AI governance where we are coming out of a strong embrace of the many possibilities of AI, much like the early days of widespread and popular access to the internet, where much of the AI landscape and ecosystems remain untested and unregulated. But we have also reached a point where we've been able to identify and document many of the risks, harms, and impacts of this widespread adoption. Tackling the multidimensional and complex challenges and opportunities of AI requires us to move to action and move forward in an informed way. So for responsible AI governance to be able to respond to actual needs as defined by those who experience them, we must bridge the gap between research and practice to ensure robust and evidence-based AI policy. This need led us up to the inaugural AI Policy Research Summit in Stockholm last November as a joint initiative by the AI Policy Lab and MILA. The summit brought together a community eager to address this need for better synergies between research, policy, and impact to realize responsible, equitable, and sustainable AI for the benefit of all. And following the summit, we established the Global AI Policy Research Network, or Global POL. I'm not sure we have the slides up and running. If we do not, we'll have them up in just a moment, where you will be able to access the QR codes where you can see more about the Global POL network. A core objective of the Global POL network is to inform global approaches to AI governance by sharing best practices and fostering collaboration on developing AI policy. This includes advancing responsible AI policy research, that meets the growing need for governance grounded in ethical, transparent, and evidence-based practices to shape inclusive and trustworthy policies. The Global Pole Network is guided by the AI Policy Research Roadmap, central to our session here today. This roadmap was developed through collaborative discussions at the inaugural AI Policy Research Summit. This roadmap provides guidance on how to ensure advancements in AI align with local ethical, legal, and social priorities. And in a minute, it will be my sincere pleasure to hand over to an initiator of the inaugural AI Policy Summit and founding member of the Global Pole Network, Virginia Dignam. Virginia will open the session by highlighting the critical role of AI policy research in shaping inclusive, context-aware, and globally relevant AI governance. Drawing on insights from the AI Policy Research Roadmap, she will outline key priorities for responsible AI, discuss how multi-stakeholder collaboration can strengthen governance frameworks while respecting regional diversity and global interdependence, and frame this session's focus on practical pathways to integrate research into policy for ethical, effective, and future-proof AI systems. Welcome, Virginia Dignam, Professor of Responsible AI at Umeå University and Director of the AI Policy Lab.
Thank you very much, Isadora. No pressure, I see. You want me to say all kinds of things. I hope that in the 15 minutes that I have, I will be able to meet the task. But let me start by sharing my slides. Just a second, always changing from one to the other. Okay. So the roadmap for AI policy research, and thank you, Isadora, for the short introduction that you made about how we started and where we are now, and also about the community, the network that we are launching today. I'm trying to give a little bit more of the background on why do we start this, how we see the roadmap being used, and what for can we use this roadmap. Why? First, in order to understand why we have this roadmap for AI policy research, of course, it's important to understand what we mean by AI policy research and why do we need AI policy research. It's no surprise to any of you that AI is shaping societies in a profound and very impactful way, and it's affecting us positively and negatively in many different ways in our rights, our decisions, our behavior, our agency, but also is shaping and modifying global power dynamics. And that is ever more visible since the last few months and how geopolitics are changing. But despite this growing awareness of the change of society, policy responses are very often fragmented, reactive, and also very much dominated by short-term interests. There is no way or no continuity or no globality on addressing policy response to the impact of AI. The gap between the development of AI and our understanding of its impact is also widening. We are seemingly able to change quicker the technology and the systems that we are developing than our understanding of what exactly these systems are doing. And therefore, we need scientific research and mostly multidisciplinary research, or I would say further, we need to go beyond the disciplines because AI is not just a technology, it's a social technical system, is a system of systems, and one discipline alone is not sufficient to address it. So we really need to look at how can we go beyond disciplines and create a new field to address all this complexity. And this is not just a technical challenge, it's really a societal imperative as we look at the impact of AI in society. And if we look at that, it's always powerful to use this image by the Mozilla Internet Foundation showing how AI sees the world. And this is an image from 2022. If anything, today, this image is even more skewed than what is showing in the slide. And of course, even within those blue areas of the world, the skewedness of access and participation in the AI is different for different communities, for different groups, for different demographics. So we do need to understand the power or the capability of AI to shape and to affect our abilities of decision making, our own behavior, and also the power structures, like I just said. The current deployment tends to reinforce existing inequalities, and at the same time, it keeps marginalizing no Western worldviews and indigenous knowledge and other types of knowledge. So responsible AI needs to go just much beyond the technical fixes. It needs to we require a much broader understanding and the instruments to do that for inclusive governance, for the contextual understanding and accountability of all of us. So the context in which we are now, in one end, we see the area of regulations and policies, which are many and growing, and in one end. On the other hand, we are also seeing again and again a pushback towards regulation with this fallacious and completely false idea that innovation is hampered by regulation, which has been proven again and again that's not the case. But we still see that in one end we see all these regulations and policies, and I'm at this moment in Bangkok at the UNESCO Forum for the Ethics of AI, and it's one of the things that we discuss here. And at the other end, we see the pushback on the regulations and policies, because the corporate power on developing AI remains strong. Monopolies that are controlling and determining what AI is, how we are using AI, what can AI do or not, are monopolies that are very much outside of the control of any democratic process. The impact on state sovereignty is huge, maybe, and like I said, dependent and much more evident now, given the changes in geopolitics than before. This is affecting smaller countries in the global south much more than other countries. And the economic interests, all these developments are much more led by economic and capitalistic interests than by the impact and the ability to serve communities. If we look, we are at IGF today, so we have also to look at the way that the digital infrastructure is also shaping the global power and access. The infrastructure decisions have very deep implications to the access to AI, to surveillance, to the digital rights, but also to human rights in general. And even also here we see a fragmented governance, and which are weakening accountability, and therefore the need for inclusive and transparent and equitable participation is again very important. And again, we are seeing more and more this sovereignty debates showing how different and how the impact is in the north and in the south. So regulation of AI is one part of it, but we also are looking at how AI is enforcing regulation, how are AI systems enforcing existing regulatory systems. And in other hand, we are also seeing AI informing the way that regulation is put forward. And looking at this cycle, again, we need to address the research, the development, the understanding of these complex feedback loops from a perspective of multidisciplinary, a coherent and comprehensive research approach. Because AI doesn't happen to us. The current narrative is often that AI is something like the weather. We have no idea how to control it. The only thing we can do is to take an umbrella if it's going to rain. So address the effects of the weather. But AI is not weather. AI is developed by us. It's developed by organizations, by people, and it's ultimately dependent. The way AI looks, what we're doing with AI is ultimately dependent from the choice that we make. Who is making these choices? Which are the values that are considered in this choice, and how are we prioritizing these values? If we are not part of this conversation, someone else is taking the decisions for us. And also, it's increasingly important to understand and to provide both the research and the tools to ask the question zero, the question whether AI is the best option. It's not about using AI because we can, but we need more and more to be able to understand how to use AI because we should. And also when not to use AI because the impact of AI might be bigger than not using AI. All these solutions are much more about societal humanities and social science than just about the technological science. And please stop me when the time is over because I cannot see my clock somehow in my screen. I think I talked already about innovation versus regulation, so just let's go move and say a little bit more about the roadmap for responsible AI policy research. What we recognize the risks and the responsibilities of AI, but this is just the beginning. We believe and think that coordinated scientific research across disciplines, beyond disciplines, participatory and integrating not only the academic research, but again, different types of knowledge, from indigenous knowledge, from contextual knowledge, from the knowledge of the affected populations, needs to be integrated in order to guide policy in a way that it's really grounded in ethics and sustainability. We need the tools and opportunities and the methods to identify the gaps, to prioritize global inclusivity and to build the mechanisms for the responsible AI development. For too long, we have been in the field of responsible AI talking about the principles and guidelines. It's now time to really go on and deploy AI responsibly. And therefore, these are what we want to achieve with the AI policy research roadmap. I think the slides have the QR code has been shared already. We need it because change is political, is not technical. Technology alone is not really going to create the change that we need, the political change that we need, the social change that we need, the way that we are addressing the impact of AI. Digitalization raised many questions which are still unanswered, but we cannot wait for answering the questions about digitalization and then go and answer and address the questions of the next wave, the AI wave. And these feedback loops again and again is the core of the issues why AI policy is especially important. The core principles of our roadmap are the following, and I will quickly go through them. So, because we can discuss that later in the Q&A. Human and planetary welfare, accountability and transparency, inclusivity, diversity and capacity building, ethical research practice, ethical governance, and equitable economic growth. Those are the principles that we believe should be guiding and leading research and application of AI policy, research on AI policy and application and deployment of AI policies. Our research priorities are around transboundary governance, about means and tools and possibilities to define and measuring the benefits of AI, and at the same time also be able to define and measure the challenges and the risks of AI, foresight and proactive regulation, looking at codes of conduct, looking how can we embrace and do research based on collaboration, on participation, and not just make that a kind of side thought or a check in the checklist. And we also need to look at the different sectors and how the policies and research in policies need to be done to be aligned with the needs and the characteristics of different sectors. The guiding actions, and Isadora already also talked about it, we want to establish this community of practice to which we invite and welcome all of you. We are working on visiting AI fellowships at the different groups involved in the community. Mila and us at AI Policy Lab already have starting fellowship programs in place. We have this annual AI Policy Summit. Save the date. It will be mid of November in the Netherlands. The call for action, which we are sharing with you today, but we also want to work together on AI policy briefs and supporting the capability for student exchange, staff exchange, and other ways to support capacity building and AI literacy. So the time to act is now. AI is shaping our collective future, and if we don't act today, we need to act today, and we need to act today not only from the perspective of disparate policies, but in a comprehensive and scientifically grounded research on the policies and the implementations that we are making. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Virginia. We really appreciate several very important points, and we are looking forward to a discussion later on after the intervention part, reflecting on your presentation. And now we will move on to several interventions, and we'll start with the EU perspective by Alex Moldau. Alex, floor is yours.
Yes, thank you so much. My name is Alex Moltzau, and I work as a seconded national expert in the European AI Office within the European Commission DG Connect. And for today, I'm not speaking on behalf of the European Commission or representing any kind of official views or perspectives thereof. So first, I wanted to say that I was there in a personal capacity as well as this workshop, and I found it to be really wonderful to see everyone gathered together to kind of like how to collaborate as different research actors and how to engage with policy and trying to build this bridge. My background is in social data science, so in a way with a data science background, but also this social science aspect, but also artificial intelligence in public services. However, I'm working now directly trying to shape policy making in the European area and in the internal market, and for as someone who is working in the European Commission as a policymaker, it's really kind of invigorating, I think, to kind of come and to participate in the research community. And 5 years prior to joining the AI office, I worked directly with the research community of Norway nationally with AI, machine learning, and robotics. So maybe I'm biased, you know, but maybe that's a positive bias in a sense that, you know, if we want good policy making, it's really crucial that we have an evidence basis upon which we act, you know, because in many ways we are running after all these targets and we want to hit all these milestones. And I'm working now directly with the AI Act and also writing an implementing act for AI regulatory sandboxes. So I think this kind of way, what way can we work to create good feedback loops? How can we think of ways of involving the scientific community, involving the research community? I'm also really happy to say that it's kind of like a core part of the AI Act itself, and a lot of the processes surrounding this regulatory work with the AI Act. I have 2 points in that regard, and the first one being the scientific panel. So ingrained within the AI Act itself is this governance mechanism that establishes a scientific panel. The implementing act for this has already been accepted, and the call has recently been published with the deadline this autumn. So in a way, we are kind of like actively recruiting experts in sort of GPI systems, AI impacts or related fields, and 80% of course will come from the EU or EFTA, but it's also open to international experts to join this scientific panel. And it's not just kind of a nice galleon, you know, to look at, you know. It's actually has a governance mechanism. So in a way, the scientific panel can also raise qualified alerts about certain systems as kind of general purpose AI models that does not kind of immediately sort of fit those like explicit requirements. So I think this is, of course, quite an important function, but also like an important way that the scientific community can directly engage into the regulatory framework of the AI Act. And the second way, you know, I think is in a process that is called shaping sort of like the code of practice. So this is sort of the code of practice for the general purpose AI models, and you have about 1,000 stakeholders. And many of them are researchers, and most of the chairs have research backgrounds. I mean, it's really incredible to see kind of the reflections in that community. And I think, you know, we also have to think about our regulatory work now in a way, especially because the field of AI requires often kind of deep domain knowledge. So sort of like, how can we not ignore scientists, you know? And I think this is something that are trends, you know, in policymaking that we want to avoid. You know, we have to listen to scientists. We have to listen to researchers. We have to listen to reason, to facts. If we do not do that, then we will be worse off. We will not have as good policymaking process. We will not have as good outcomes, or we won't even know what the outcomes are. So I think, I mean, what outcomes do we want as citizens? What outcomes do we want as communities? And sort of like talking back to Virginia's point, AI is social, you know, it's part of our lives. It's part of kind of our societies. And we really have to work hard to make sure that it works in a way that doesn't create like any or worsen the climate crisis. I think or the Sustainable Development Goals. I think one of the inspiring papers from Virginia as well, and a lot of co-authors like go into this direction of like mapping AI and Sustainable Development Goals. So I think like there is so much to explore, but if we do not listen to researchers, if we do not listen to scientists, we have a big problem, people. So everyone here today, let's make sure that we bake that into everything that we do in our regulatory practice, everything we do to shape a better environment for responsible AI.
Thank you. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Thank you so much for providing your perspective on this, Alex. It's very valuable to hear from someone who is working very concretely with this. So thank you for this. Now, I am sad to inform the audience here that due to circumstances, our third speaker, Nima Lukangira, Member of Parliament in Tanzania, sends her regrets as she's unable to join us today. But I'm happy, on the other hand, to say that we'll have the chance to hear from Elcho Poort, Vice President Consulting CGI in the Netherlands, who will be sharing with us his reflections on the impact of AI policy research on IT consultancy and systems integrations. Welcome, Elcho.
Thank you, Isadora. Yeah, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to say a few things. There's a little bit of happenstance here because I ran into Virginia when we were working on a project together, and I hadn't seen her for years. And then she asked me, "Oh, can you say a few words at this IGF forum?" So I had some sparring session with some of the experts within CGI. And hence, yeah, I can say something about our position in this. So for those of you who do not know CGI, we are an IT services company, quite large, about 100,000 employees in 40 countries. And we do mostly IT consultancy and systems integration. And we are also very involved in AI policy making. We have our own responsible AI framework, and I'll tell you why in a minute. And we are also one of the first signatories of the AI Pact, and we also know the people working there, and they know CGI, right? So the first thing I would like to say is that this role of consultants and systems integrators falls a little bit into a gap in the policy so far. For example, looking at the AI Act, you see that there's a lot of attention for the providers and for deployers. And we tend to be in the middle of that. We integrate systems, we give consultancy, we give recommendations about deployment, but we are not a provider per se of AI systems. So that gives us some unique problems. One of the problems is, for example, the divergence of AI policy in different geographies. Many of our clients are multinationals. So I'm very happy to look at your focus on transboundary AI policy, because that will definitely help us in our role as systems integrators. By the way, that is also one of the reasons that we have our own responsible AI framework, and we have to keep it in line with all the various policies around the globe that our clients have to comply with. Another thing that I would like to say is about the level of detail of the policies. And here there are actually 2 points that seem to be paradoxical. But on the one hand, it's very important that the policy is at a principle level, the level of principles. If policy becomes too detailed, then it becomes very hard to maintain especially when it comes to technology. This is a technology that is evolving very quickly. And if the policy is based on things like the number of floating point operations, like we meet, for example, in the AI Act, then that is not really maintainable. It presents problems. So in that sense, it has to be on the level of principles. On the other hand, there also have to be very practical guardrails, because practical guardrails will indeed speed up innovation. But you need to stay away from the roadblocks that slow innovation. What we see is that organizations that have clear guidance and they speed up innovation in AI terms because they don't have to look over their shoulder all the time. They have no uncertainty about, are we breaking laws, are we at risk from non-compliance, etc., etc. Maybe now or in the future. The sooner this gets clarified and becomes very clear, the easier it is to fast innovation. So this is how we see that AI policy actually does not slow innovation, but it speeds it up. Those are the most important points that I would like to make. And of course, in order to do that, the policy researchers need to collaborate closely with the private sector, including the systems integrators. As I said, we are already doing that. This is also the first time that I heard from the network, so I will definitely make sure that we join that.
Thank you so much, LTO. We really appreciate the industry's perspective. And now we would like to move on to our last intervention by Dr. Jason Tucker. He's Adjunct Associate Professor at AI Policy Lab at Umeå University, as well as researcher at the Institute for Future Studies. Jason, floor is yours.
Thank you. So I wear two hats. I'm an academic, but I also work in public policy. And this is why I'm sort of particularly interested in these questions. And I work in AI and global health, and we hear repeatedly how AI is going to revolutionize healthcare. Through many of the sessions over the last few days alone, I've heard 6 or 7 accounts of healthcare being used as the primary example of the massive potential of AI to transform our societies for the better and to meet complex societal challenges. And it's true, there are sort of areas where AI is making advances in healthcare, but critically only in some areas and for some people. And this isn't necessarily always positive. And we shouldn't take for granted that these advancements will continue or that the benefits of this will be equally distributed globally. And I think one of the factors that's limiting the potential of AI in healthcare and also weakening global health itself is the lack of international governance on AI. And I won't talk so much about the reasons for this. Virginia's touched upon these, the sort of shifting global political economy of healthcare as a result of AI and the concentrations of power in the hands of non-traditional health actors and new relationships we have between people and new healthcare providers, and the impact this is having on the norms and the roles of traditional healthcare actors like clinicians. And these relationships are quite opaque, and there's also growing concerns about security and the environmental cost of relying on AI to fix healthcare systems, as well as increasing evidence that this actually worsens health inequalities in some situations. It creates new health concerns and new problems, and it can cause more harm than good. But I find one of the things that worries me the most is this idea that if we throw resources at AI, we can fix the healthcare system. So we're diverting resources away from chronically underfunded public healthcare systems into healthcare in the hope that a magic pill will be created to fix the healthcare system. If it works, that's fantastic, but this is incredibly risky. And I think we can take these risks, but we have to be very strategic in how we do this. So this fragmented approach to AI governance, I think, is bad for our health, it's bad for business, it's bad for innovation. And we need a coordinated multi-stakeholder framework of governance to support the responsible use of AI in healthcare. And my argument here is based on historical precedent. The foundations, the greatest innovations we've had in healthcare and global health have been based on regulation to incorporate and the incorporation of new technologies. So some examples. Modern medicine is built on regulation. 100 years ago, a group of international experts met in Brussels to sign a treaty which regulated the potent medicines. So before then, when you went to the pharmacy, you had no idea what you're getting. You could sell anything and anyone could sell it. But now when we go to the pharmacy, we feel confident when we buy paracetamol that it doesn't really matter where we buy it from, it's going to be safe and it's going to be efficient and effective. Also, global health is reliant on international cooperation. I think we only have to think about the COVID pandemic and where there was cooperation and the benefits of this, and when there wasn't cooperation and the devastating consequences of this. We don't really have these choices. Health doesn't exist within national borders. Similarly, healthcare is useful here because it's rooted in scientific method and evidence-based research. When we go to the clinician and we ask for a diagnosis, we expect this to be rooted in scientific research. And similarly, so we can use this as a way to sort of cut through the hype of AI and demand sort of greater clarity in these systems. Healthcare is also multi-stakeholder. You can't do public health interventions without including complex, diverse stakeholders. Otherwise, the policies just don't land well. We see this again and again. So what are the next steps? We have some great foundations from the World Health Organization, their sort of ethical guidelines on artificial intelligence and health, and we have this OECD and the EU AI Act as well, sort of identifying health as a high-risk area and sort of extra concerns around that. It's fantastic. But what we're really lacking is evidence-based research to inform this policy. And some of this exists and it's siloed within academia, and some of it just doesn't exist and is desperately needed. So this is why I sort of got involved with this roadmap on AI policy research to try and figure out this disconnect, where we can sort of better connect research to policy making, and also where there's gaps, we can address this through scientific research. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now, after several interventions, we are moving to the exciting discussion part, and we are opening the floor for both in-person and online participants. And in order to ask questions, we would really appreciate if you could use the mics on the sides, as well as when you speak, to introduce yourself. And for the discussion, we are going to start addressing the 3 questions on the screen, and I believe Isadora also would like to take it over.
Thank you so much, Tanya. I will also, of course, want to invite everyone who is participating online to be active contributors to this discussion. I also shared the discussion questions in the chat for you to have a look at and refer to. We want to go over in the last remaining 25 minutes or so before we move into closing remarks, the following 3 topics. How can AI policy research support global cooperation in AI governance while respecting regional diversity? What mechanisms can best support the access to and effective integration of AI policy research into AI governance processes? We've heard some examples here from our previous speakers, but we would love to also hear your thoughts on these or other potential mechanisms as well that you might want to bring up. And what are the most pressing areas in sustainability and digital rights protection where AI policy should be targeted? Where are we not looking and where would we need to redirect or provide more attention? These are our questions, and we will open up the floor to all of you.
Yes. One thing that I didn't mention that we are working on currently is also these AI regulatory sandboxes. So I'm currently part of writing also the implementing act for the AI regulatory sandboxes, which means kind of operationalizing the way that these are being rolled out across the European region. And I was just prior to this in a discussion with sandboxes globally as well, because for me personally, again, I think like we don't have all the solutions, obviously, in Europe, and we should look at like all these different locations across the world. A lot of people forget that like digital payments didn't kind of originate so much from Europe as from Africa, and like I think like what ways can we create an evidence basis, you know? So for the sandboxes as well, these are in the shape of like exit reports, you know, so that the dissemination and communication of like how do these SMEs and startups like in health or like in other areas actually work for citizens? Do they work well? Do they fulfill even existing regulatory requirements, or kind of the interplay of these different regulations that we have, and how to solve that in the best way possible? Because we want innovation, you know. It's like amazing. I mean, like I often use cars as an example. I know it's a bit silly, but I also like to use the child seat, you know, because I have a daughter, and it's not like when I put in the child seat in the car, I don't think like, oh, this is not so innovative, you know. It's like it's almost comedic, right? To see people talk that there's like this binary opposition between like innovation and regulation. Regulation, well applied, creates better innovation for citizens and for communities. And like, you were mentioning the flop count, you know, like I think one of the speakers here today from CGI, the VP, Etio Port, and I think this is a really good, I mean, example, right? Because like, do we think that speed limit is a bad idea? It's only a threshold, right? So like it only means that over a certain threshold, there are kind of other requirements that may apply, right? So in a way, like we're not trying to stop innovation, but like if you train models of a certain size, and like I think the EU are still kind of working out what is the best way to do this. Maybe there are additional requirements that you have to think about, right? So, I mean, like we haven't figured out everything, right? That's why we are working with now 97 people in the AI office. We want to recruit 140 by the end of the year. So I mean, these are just some points from my side.
Thank you so much, Alex. I would like to jump in here and also just open up for 2 comments or questions from our online participants. We have 2 hands raised. Joanna Bryson, would you like to go first?
Hi, yeah, sure. Thanks very much, and sorry not to be in Oslo. I wanted to come specifically to your question about global cooperation. So while I strongly agree, of course, it's nice to make things easier for the you know, people who produce the AI. I also think that it's a mistake to have a single governance structure that would probably get captured. That's the problem, regulatory capture and market concentration we're seeing right now And a lot of the people pushing very hard for uniformity are coming from the country where a lot of the concentrated power is right now. So I think it's important that we recognize that all different countries have different priorities, capacities, risks, and it makes sense that we have at least some diversity in legislation. I think what the EU has demonstrated is that if you do harmonize your legislation, then you can have a bigger ask, and people are still willing to come just to get access to your government. So, I mean, not to your government, to your economy, right? So basically, there's the real Brussels effect is the proportionality between how hard is it to do business where you are and what is your GDP, right? So what are you paying back for the effort made to comply with your regulations? There are global efforts to create sort of modules so that transparency is similar in different places. But I think the things that happened in the last few months really show us that we want resilience through diversity. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Joanna, with this comment that resonates much with what we've also heard here earlier. Anne Flanagan.
Hello, apologies that I'm not there in person today. I'm in transit at the moment, hence my picture on your screen. I'm Anne Flanagan of Void Strategy Group. I'm Irish but based in San Francisco, and I have been one of those EU policymakers. And I've also worked in one of the largest AI model providers. And sort of coming from both of those perspectives, I want to really just double click on that first question about how AI policy research can support global cooperation in AI governance while respecting regional diversity. I think we really need to zoom in on this idea of policy interoperability. We're never going to have a global regime. We're never going to have a single global governance structure. It's not realistic. It's also not appropriate, because when we look at AI, I think really when we're looking at the harms and protecting people, what harms mean can look different in different regions, different cultural contexts. It can be different even within the same country from person to person. So you have people who are coming at this from different circumstances. One of the biggest challenges for me when I was in the Irish government looking at digital policy, I used to work on telecoms, infrastructure, data policy, et cetera, and early AI policy. And one of the biggest challenges is that when you're looking at something like this, where there is a step change and you're affecting multiple sectors, the evidence is thin as to what the impact of these technologies actually is. And by that, I mean that it's really, really difficult to legislate or regulate something that hasn't happened yet, right? We know as human beings, we know from other policy areas that there may be dangers that are imminent, but it's very, very challenging when there is a lack of evidence base. That pulls you very quickly into ex ante rather than ex post regulation. That's a tricky space to be in. If you look at what the OECD guidelines say around better regulation, we really should have an evidence base when we're looking at what happens. But where does that leave us? I think the role of policy researchers is so incredibly crucial here. Alex mentioned the sandbox initiatives early on. Having those environments where you can test, trial, and find out what the harms are and how they actually play out, particularly, for example, for GPI systems, is really, really something where the scientific and research community can help policymakers to make better decisions. The private sector, of course, has a role to play here as well. And I think encouraging the private sector to engage in partnerships with the policy research community is always a really, really healthy thing. They will be less willing to come forward to help governments. It's very encouraging to see the EU set up that scientific research panel, and I think they probably will come forward in that respect. But this really is a case that it requires a multi-stakeholder effort to, one, surface different potential policy harms, two, test and unearth that evidence, and then three, really, really bring forward diverse perspectives around potential harms around AI.
Much appreciated, and important comments there as well for reflection here. I would like to turn it back to the room. We've had a couple of questions. There are more comments in the chat, but I'm happy to come back to them as I cannot see who might want to be speaking in the room. So over to you, Tanya.
We do not really have speakers at the mic, so we can continue with online. Oh, I'm sorry, Jason.
Thank you. I also think I agree with the comments made about a global governance approach not being appropriate in this case. and the role of sort of complexity in pushing forward these agendas. But I think one of the other areas we need to think about, especially in, say, healthcare, for example, the public health authorities are huge players, and they can drive markets. They can demand standards that force the private sector and public-private partnerships to meet. So I think we also need to be creative in how we sort of align our values. And this, I think, speaks a little bit to the conversations we had earlier of sort of principles and then operationalization, and how we sort of ensure that, say, we can meet the Hippocratic Oath and provide good public health care, but also sort of constantly regulate and maintain this.
Isadora, would you like to take to the online participants?
Thank you. We do have participation here from Petter Eriksson.
Hello, thank you so much. So I'm Petter Eriksson, I'm a staff scientist also at the AI Policy Lab, so some of you people I know very well. So I would like to bring up the question of military and AI. I was at the AI Labour Society workshop a couple of weeks back, and Daria Gorasio made a very good speech about the military and civilian trajectories of AI, and he went into sort of where does how tight the integration has been between AI research and the sort of military industrial complex in the US in particular, but also globally. And I think that's maybe a place where we as researchers, we as academics and policymakers can really sort of lead on a global harmonized effort, even if all areas of AI may not be appropriate to have as a globally harmonized regulatory space. I think that something we can take inspiration, for example, from the work of academics back in the in like the 50s and so on and 60s on nuclear proliferation, for example, and consider areas where it is not appropriate to apply AI technologies, and sort of gather a global perspective on that and make for a global push on limiting those potential very actual harms of AI technology.
Thank you, Petter, for this very pertinent and timely intervention as well. A question I think many have on their minds as well regarding military use of AI nowadays. Thank you for this, Petter. I think we have another question here from Knut, so we will go to that one before going back to the questions and see where we should be addressing more. Knut. Are you with us in voice, Knut? Otherwise, I can read your question from the chat. Okay, I can read it out loud. There, question from Knut. The Norwegian Tax Administration. How can scientific research contribute to policies that help the public sector better hit the mark in safeguarding privacy when using AI? Our experience today is that we swing from one extreme to the other, either neglecting privacy or being overly cautious, which hinders our ability to be sufficiently innovative in the use of AI. Do we have any responders to this question?
Alex would like to address.
I want to address this with an anecdote, and because I am Norwegian, I feel partly responsible here. I mean, I'm seconded as a national expert to the AI office through the EEA agreement. But one story from a friend, in Norway as well, who was kind of in the situation where she was out of a job. I mean, it was the pandemic, and she was pregnant. And then she was going to switch over from from pregnancy pay and then back to unemployment pay, and that didn't go automatically. And then because of some slowness in the system at the time, I think there was a 3-month wait until getting back on, and you have a mortgage running and you have things happening, right? And when I called them up because I was angry about this, I was like, what's happening here? I mean, just as a concerned person, like their argument was that for privacy reasons, they were not sharing kind of data and fluency between, and sometimes, I mean, like, I love privacy, but we need to be competent enough to understand like when we are trying to protect people and when data sharing, even within an organization, is appropriate. And of course, we have federated learning and privacy enhancing technologies, but that still means we have to be careful, right? Because I mean, like, there are cases that can go horribly wrong when we try to model citizens. I mean, like as shown by the Dutch welfare scandal. And people were placed in prisons and lost their rights to their kids even, and there are some serious potential consequences for citizens that are sometimes hard to predict. So I would say raise the competence in the tax authority and work with research communities, and there are many research centers as well established now that you can reach out to, also in Norway, that work on AI.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alex. I would like to say indeed that part of the roadmap is the need for capacity building initiatives as well, raising the general awareness, whether it be within public sector or the general public, on how to navigate these systems and use them well, is indeed a crucial priority as well. So thank you for highlighting this, Alex.
Isadora, Jason would like to add.
And just to jump in on that, I agree with Alex, but I also think we need to take a step back as well, because there's an assumption that AI is a solution to sort of a broad range of societal challenges and complexities, and in some cases it will be enormously beneficial. But I think we need to remember there's a cost financially, in terms of energy and data and privacy and how we do this. So we need to be very strategic and think, is AI the best? What's the sort of problem we're trying to address, and is AI a solution? And we do a lot of work on this at the AI Policy Lab as well, like trying to discourage people using AI where it's going to be wasteful or not efficient, and where non-technical solutions are better or more sustainable.
Yes, we call it question zero in terms of even if we could, should we in the first place. And here we are talking about organizational levels, when organizations are having a formal moment running to adopt AI tool without understanding what kind of problems they're trying to solve with these tools. Isadora, as of now, I don't see any questions in the audience. Do we have any online?
We do, from Elcho.
Hi, yeah. And this is not a question about either of these, but it is relevant in a meta way. We see some very strong pushback against AI regulation in the United States right now. And this may eventually also affect AI policy research because, in one way, it may be considered in the future to be activistic research and thus putting funding at risk. And do you see that risk? And do you see any ways to protect this very important research from such a risk?
Maybe I can take this one. Yes, thank you for the comment, Elcho. Yes, it is a risk, and it is an issue that is concerning many of us. The line between AI policy research and activist AI is becoming very, very narrow. And with all the pushbacks, not only in the United States against regulation, but we see that in Europe as well. And just recently, the Swedish Prime Minister has proposed to the European Union at least a stop or a moratorium on further development and implementation of the AI Act. So we see that all over the place. And it shows, I think, if anything, the importance of grounded, evidence-based scientific research around these topics. It cannot be just a whim of politicians. It cannot be left to the private sector alone. But we really need to more than ever work on the fundamental grounds on which we can measure and determine and understand the impact of AI. And several of my colleagues have talked about the question zero, which is one of the main issues. It's not about should we use AI or can we use AI, using AI because we can, but also because we should. But this understanding why we should use AI is not a technical question, is a fundamental societal and political question, and depends the way that we ask the question, the answers that come. So we really need to look at that also from, again, a multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary perspective, because it's not just letting the technologists or the politicians answer the question of whether should AI be used or not. Because what we gain with it and what we lose with it are questions that really require a deep participatory and fundamentally participatory way.
Thanks, Virginia.
Yes, indeed. The call for also building resilient institutions for academic integrity when the wind blows in different directions is important here. Over to the room.
Yeah, Alex has an intervention.
Yeah, I think I just also wanted to speak to this question on the importance of like evidence-based policymaking. I mean, like, it bears repeating. We should not take it for granted. I mean, like, look around the world and look around the politics and look around the statements that are being made. Like, we have to work really hard to bridge that gap. I mean, that is why this initiative is so timely. That is why this initiative is so important, because we need people to work on this actively. Like an AI policy roadmap is what has been created, and now it has also kind of fairly clear actions to follow up on it. And this is a global concern, and I mean, it's something that we can contribute to. There are actions that we can take to improve this, and like people that are listening in on this and people in the room, I mean, think about this and like do something about it when you get back to wherever you are working. I mean, like, and you could be working in the government, you could be working in a private company. Like, this is something that you can do something with, you know? Like, it's in your hands, and like, it's something that you really can take responsibility for. So I would just encourage that, you know, not take it for granted.
Yeah. So we do have one last question online. I think this might be our last question before we move into the closing remarks. Mattias Brännström.
Hello, I'm also a researcher in the AI Policy Lab, and I also want to comment on this the relationship between innovation and the pushback against regulation, and I think I just want to push for going really to the ground with a highly contextualized problem descriptions rather than engaging the problem from the too generalized standpoint, because if you go down and talk to the actual problems in private sector, in public sectors, which people are actually dealing with, they are often from the perspective of lacking regulation or lacking the safety net that regulation creates, as long as the problems are concrete enough. But when they become sweeping and generalized, we lose this connection. So I really think that get like public support for the use of regulation. We really need to bring up the concrete problems.
Matthias, thank you so much for bringing us to the ground and reminding about different stakeholders and their positionality. Isadora, I think we could move. We are left 5 minutes. Thank you so much for the moderation of online participation. And Virginia, would you like to take over for the concluding remarks?
Sure, thank you for that. Thank you all for your participation, the ones who contribute, but also the ones who have been listening. Thank you so much to everybody. It's a pity, again, I cannot be there in person to discuss it further with you guys, but I have been given the task to try to come up with some type of key takeaways from what we have discussed. And I think that it's clear that one of the issues that is in the mind of many of us is around the governance, is around this eternal discussion between policy and innovation, regulation and innovation. And I think that there is exactly where, like I said just before, where we need much more effort into evidence-based, into scientific research, because that's where we can really show the benefits of regulation, the ways, comparing different ways of regulation, because we tend to think about regulation as being set in stone, whereas in the other side, when we think about technology, we see a dynamic and adaptable way of building it. We need to also use the tools we have for technological innovation to support us on regulatory and organizational innovation, and looking at regulations, looking at organizational and societal transformation from the perspective of understanding and comparing and evaluating the capabilities and the weaknesses and powers of different types of regulation. So that is where research is important. I think that we looked also at the issues of interoperability and the danger of governance capture. So it is not, I think, the aim at all for research to come up with the one and only governance model, but is actually to understand and to deal with and provide the means for interoperability between regulatory and governatory models. Again, there is an issue for governance. And I think that we all, in the different types of interactions, have considered the importance of participation and of inclusivity, inclusion of different groups, inclusion of different demographics, different communities, but also the inclusion of many different disciplines. And if I look back at the words that Isadora asked us to share, those are typically not the topics or the words that we associate with technology, but are fundamentally societal issues like inequality, equity, humanity, inclusion, environment, and so on. And I think that's there where we need to ground going forward on AI policy research. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate in-person participants. And Isadora, would you like to finalize?
I will also extend our sincere thanks to all online participants for your active participation in this hybrid event, and for all who are in person as well, to our esteemed speakers for your very pertinent interventions, contributing from all your diverse perspectives on these crucial questions at this pivotal point of time in AI governance as we move forward and need actively to take action. It's been a very enriching conversation, and we do hope that you will continue following the updates from Global AI Policy Research Network, and please sign and endorse the roadmap if this calls to you. We do hope to see further adoption and adaptation of these principles in networks as we move forward. And also, of course, thanks to the IGF for allowing us to host this session. And we hope to engage more with all of you through various channels as we move forward in this active pursuit to bridge policy, practice, and research. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Tanya.
Thanks. And if we are allowed, we will leave our QR codes on the screen. Have a great day and lunch.
Thank you all.